Hi, everyone. Welcome to Radiant Living, Inspiring Humanity to Thrive. I'm your host, Marisa B, and today I have with me Aubrey Rae Moore, former scientist and gifted sex and intimacy coach. Aubrey assists women in relationships to discover and explore their true desires. Hi, Aubrey. Thank you so much for coming today.
Hi, thank you so much, Marissa. It's nice to be here.
Thank you. I'm thrilled. I'd like to know, first of all, if you could tell our audience a little bit about how, number one, you came to the healing arts.
Yeah, I've gotten this question quite a bit actually, like, how do you become a sex coach? Like, it's not a very common title. And I like to say that I've kind of been one for a long time. I've got a quick story to share with you. The first time that I really coached someone in the sexual arts was totally unintentionally. I was trying my hand at online dating, not very successfully, by the way, I might add. And I ended up meeting a woman who we kind of wanted the same things. We wanted to just like experiment and play with each other sexually. So we met up after no conversation really at all, totally fumbled around each other, knocked heads, everything. And I come to find out that she actually was a virgin and she'd never actually
Oh, wow.
done anything with anyone, and not really herself either. And, this was in like my mid 20s or something like that. I don't really remember how old I was, but it was like my mid 20s. And so I had, this fantasy in my head of like, oh, I'm going to have this like super sexy, seductive sex with this woman. And then it ended up turning out to be me teaching her how to masturbate,
Oh,
um,
wow.
which was really, really actually kind of fun for me to do. And yeah, it wasn't what I expected it to be, but that was really the first time that I thought, this is kind of, I didn't know I could help a person in this way. And fast forward, years later, that passion and that desire to help women in that way resurfaced after some time. And then I finally took action and quit my corporate job. I left an emotionally abusive relationship as well, kind of all within like 6 months of each other. I know they tell you you're not supposed to make any big life decisions
Mm-hmm.
when you're doing that. I didn't really listen. Um, and when I, particularly when I left the abusive relationship, it was after 7 years, there was a sense of freedom that I didn't know I was going to feel. I knew I would feel relief, and I felt a lot of relief, but I didn't really grasp the amount of liberation that I would feel. And that momentum, I stayed with that momentum. And then I tactfully quit my job and then pursued just what my heart was telling me to do. And it was saying, well, go do something in sexuality, human sexuality. You've always been interested in it. Like, go follow it. Why not? Um, and the rest is history. And I became a sex coach.
Because you already were in the sciences anyway. You were already following a
That's
science
true.
path.
That's true. I did, like, if we back up even further, I don't know how far back you want me to go. So just stop me if I'm going too far. Um, but yeah, if we back up a bit further, that was my degree. My degree was in chemistry, or is in chemistry. And I was a scientist for some time, for a couple of years. I worked in St. Louis at Boeing's like research facility.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a really wonderful experience. I learned a ton, but I really didn't care about airplanes, and I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
work with people. And so I actually went from scientist to assistant school teacher, assistant elementary teacher for a school year, to being a hippie in Europe for a while. And then to coming back, and I actually did recruiting in sales for about 6 years. And that was a really fun experience too. That's where I really fell in love with coaching in the first place,
Right, because you're having contact with people.
Well, yeah, and I got to manage people. Like you started at the bottom, right, when you join any company, and then I worked my way up to management. And when I started managing people, that was like the most fun. Like part of my favorite parts of that job was when people would like knock on my door to my office and just say, "Hey, do you have a minute to talk?" And they would just want to they just wanted someone to listen to them, or they wanted someone to reflect something back to them. Sometimes it was just listening and validating. Sometimes it was, reflecting back that they already are capable of what they're about to do, and that felt really good to me. I really loved that part of the job. And so when I grew to a place in the company where I started to distrust some of the leadership, I'll say, that piece of it stayed with me. And I thought, okay, well, how can I keep that piece, that like coaching, teaching, leading aspect into my next career, basically. Didn't think I was going to start my own coaching practice, but I'm really glad that I did, because I absolutely love what I do. I love what I do. I love helping women in this way. And not just women. I've worked with men and couples too, but mostly I work with
Right. That's what I was going to ask you, because you mostly work with women, and you work with women in relationships. They're generally in relationships when they come to you.
I would say it's been both, when I'm marketing, or when I give my free content, online and stuff, I do talk to women in relationships, because that's my experience. I literally have been in relationships almost nonstop since I was like 15. I'm like serial monogamous for sure. And so I like going into that depth with another woman, and teaching or helping, guiding her to communicating with her partner, because that's a really big deal in relationships. Like, that's why people get divorced. It's why people break up, because they have no idea how to talk about their sexual experience with one another, right? Like, they could be, I've had a client who was married for 15 years, and they never discuss their sexual experience with each other. They discuss finances, they discuss having children, they discuss buying houses. But when it comes to that, there's a stigma in our society. Plus, we weren't really taught to have these conversations at all. So there's no education really around it either, which makes it more difficult.
And of course, here in the United States, it's almost taboo to speak about
it's getting better. I think it's getting much better. I was talking to my mom about this the other day. My mom is like my biggest cheerleader. And we were talking about when she was young, and how, she's like, sex used to be like in the 60s and 70s. It was actually kind of like, we did talk about it, and and it was openly expressed, and then it went back down. Right. And so her and I were talking about how we think it's coming back up, in terms of like coming back up, meaning like it's being socially acceptable again. But yeah, you're right. It is still very taboo in some circles, and it's really unfortunate, because it's just a natural, healthy part of
it's part of a relationship, right? I mean, it's part of a relationship.
Being a human being, right? And definitely part of a relationship. So yeah, I do work with women in relationships, but I've also worked with women who just gotten out of relationships, or who want to explore sexual relationships with other people, and not just one person. So there's been a bit of variety, and I like that. I do like that.
Now, how is it different than, say, somatic wellness? Because as a matter of fact, I've actually had on, and she's pretty famous for women and women's bodies, and speaking about somatic education. How is it different, and yet still not a sex surrogate? How is what you do different than those two things?
So somatic, or okay, when you say sex surrogate, right? that's different than what I do, because what I am doing doesn't involve actually touching anyone. Now, in the future, that might change. But for now, in my practice, I only see people through Zoom. And so there's no possible way that we can touch one another, or that I can teach or guide through touching, which I think is a very wonderful way to learn about yourself and to be guided, is through physical touch as well. But that's just not something that I engage in right now. So those are the main differences, I would say.
Right. Because I know that somatic wellness educators provide some, I guess, what would you say, for lack of a better word, visuals. But they're providing visuals, but they're not necessarily right. They're not necessarily sex surrogates either, because sex surrogates are actually providing possibly steps or techniques. I know that there are sex therapists, licensed sex therapists, that go through extensive training, and theoretically they're not supposed to be providing any sort of physical contact either.
And the difference really between therapy and coaching, and this is my definition of it, is with therapy, well, one, like you just said, there's a ton of other qualifications and licensure that goes with therapy, and it changes with the state as well. So there's a lot more that goes on with becoming a therapist. And then in terms of just the orientation of the sessions, when I've been in therapy, it's not really always to try and get somewhere. It's just to be expressive, or just to be honest, or just to talk through something, right? Or to understand something from my childhood, right? So those have been my experiences with therapy. Whereas in coaching, it's like, okay, I'm here and I'd like to get here. So this person that I'm hiring is helping me get from here to here, and understanding everything in between. Yeah. So just a little different.
And so now you say that you provide, but you provide only on through online contact with people. And
correct, at the stage.
And so you don't, right. And you don't do any group work. It's all one-on-one.
I've done like workshops before. I enjoyed those. I have a program that's called Awaken Your Desires, and it is primarily one-on-one with like, an option to do a group call like once a month. But I really enjoy being very present with one person and being really tuned into them. I like group work too, but I really enjoy the one-on-one. So
now, do you feel that you might go to one-on-one in person? Do you think that it works differently in person than online?
I think so, and I think there requires different skills. When I was talking about how I became a coach in my last job and everything, it was all in person, right? I was in an office.
Right.
And when you're in person with someone, at least from my perspective, tuning in to their emotions and to their feelings is a lot easier for me. Whereas online, there's an extra barrier, really, is what it is. And sometimes that extra barrier helps people feel safer when it comes to sharing. Like, this is a delicate topic, right? And one we don't talk about in society. It's bad, it's dirty, right? And so that barrier sometimes can act as a safety net for the person, because they're in their own space and they're cozy, they feel safer. But to go back to what I was saying, it is different. And I think in the future, I would love to see clients in person. I just have to, I'm just being patient for when that is supposed to happen. Yeah.
And now tell me a little bit about the program that you offer. How long of a program is that?
Oh, I'd love to tell you about it. It's 4 months right now. And It is basically, we go through the first month is really building a way for the woman, it's mostly women in the program, to prioritize herself. It's very, very difficult for women in our society to find any time and to prioritize any time for herself, right? Especially after all the roles that we play. And so that's the first thing that we do the first month, really, is I help them create what I call a feminine ritual. It could be a morning routine. It could, whatever title you want to call it. But it really helps them connect with their inner desire, with their inner choice every morning. And that's important because as you go about your day, if you're not really connected with your own choices, if you're not really connected with your own desires, what can happen, and this is what happened with me for 20 years, is you fall into people pleasing, you fall into caretaking, you fall into enduring and tolerating, which is not very sustainable, right? You could probably live that way for half your life or whatever, but eventually the universe is probably going to throw you some type of thing to help you learn that lesson and get yourself out of that situation, because it's not sustainable and it's not enjoyable really at all. Like sitting there doing things for people that you don't want to do, and you're not willing to do it with a full heart either, right? That's different. If I'm willing to do something, oh, just for you, baby, I'm willing to do it. That's different than sitting and enduring. So that's the basis of the program, is really connecting to your inner desire and your inner choice. And I do that through a feminine ritual. So they go through a course and they get for free and everything. And that's like the first thing that we do. And then the next 3 months is basically understanding your sensuality, right? Our senses are a big piece of how we can connect to our bodies somatically. I mean, there's so many different dancing, yoga, there's so many different ways you can connect with your body somatically, but the 5 senses is usually pretty easy for most people. So we talk about sensuality and building kind of a sensual landscape. And then we move into, depending on, where the woman is at in her sexual journey, because everyone is in such a different place. We go into nurturing the erotic imagination. So we talk about fantasies and sexual fantasies, and what fantasies you want to keep fantasies, what fantasies you want to bring to life, and like, how do we go about doing that, right? With one of my current clients in the program, it's been so fun to watch her and observe her go after these things that she didn't get in her last relationship, her last marriage, which was I think 10 years. To go after these things. And then what happens when you start to like prioritize your desires is, what happens is when you follow one thing, usually another desire will pop up, like something else will pop up, like, oh, this sounds interesting too. So then once this is complete, maybe you'll go and pursue this. And maybe you find, oh, actually I didn't like that, and that's okay, right? That's what exploring your desires is like. Some things you fall in love with, some things you don't. And so it's been really fun to watch her follow just desires that pop up, not willy-nilly, but like really, taking stock and putting value to them. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of the bulk of my program. And the purpose of it ultimately is to help women find their own way to themselves, to their bodies, to their desires, right?
So now, do you think that this is something that really young women should learn? Because
absolutely,
the way I hear you speaking, if this isn't learned young, then often there's a lot of regrets later. Regrets maybe once the light bulb goes on, or once you find your way to a sex and intimacy coach, you almost feel that you should have started this a long time ago, or you should have addressed these needs a long time ago. Do you find that a lot of clients feel that way?
Um, I don't know if they regret, none of them have used the word regret. Um, but having permission to explore themselves in this way would have definitely changed their lives if they'd learned that sooner. Yeah.
Maybe it's something that really all young women should learn, right? I mean, if you
Yeah,
think
I
about
mean,
it, I mean, maybe not regret, but almost a pang of sorrow for not knowing earlier, right?
yeah.
Because often I'm thinking, and I can recall from clients that I've had that sometimes they were almost embarrassed
Yeah.
to think of themselves. So even though they knew that there was an issue and that they might want to address the issues, they wait years before they get
Yeah,
to it
totally. I mean,
because
I've done that too, right? I knew I was a people pleaser for a long time, and I just, you know, didn't prioritize understanding that part of me. I just was like, yeah, it's not that detrimental. It's not that bad, you know? And then you fast forward and I find myself in an abusive relationship and I'm like, whoa, where did my life go? And so I have my show just an hour before this one. And so I was interviewing somebody else on my show and we were talking about how sometimes, not all the time, but just with where our culture is at right now, sometimes feeling the pain of something is what will cause a change. Not all the time, but sometimes. Sometimes that's the motivation to make the change in your life. And it sucks at the time, but there's a lesson, there's a gem
right.
in it, right?
And that's right. You say, because you do have a program yourself, you do have a podcast. And can you tell everybody what it's called?
Yes, yeah. It's called the Masturbation Chronicles. And I go live every Thursday in my Facebook group, which is called Pleasure Positivity for Women. It's a sacred private space for women and those who identify as women. And then I also put the show on YouTube as well. So you can find it on YouTube as well.
Oh, great. Oh, I definitely would like to put that information in the description box so that people can find you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know that this is it's a, I don't want to say taboo. It's a difficult subject often, I think. I think that if women are discovered to want to talk about this or want to explore something or feel that they're not a caretaker or they're not a people pleaser, there's almost a shame that comes with a lot of this. I don't want to say it's a patriarchal imposed shame, but there is a shame. Often you don't necessarily hear it about men, but you hear it about women. Oh, that person is selfish or self-centered, self-absorbed. They only care about themselves, or they've been labeled, a bad wife or a bad mother.
Yeah.
And
it's misinformation, really, because what I know to be true is that this is an example. What I know to be true is that when we engage in self-pleasure or masturbation, that enhances our relationships. It enhances our lives. Our sexual energy is directly related to our creative energy. They're like the same thing. And so, for example, in my masturbation practices, I use them to create things. And if you really think about the when I talk to my male friends about this, so I have an upcoming book. So I'm kind of going all over the place, but it'll come together in a minute. I have an upcoming book. It's called The Art of Self-Pleasure. And it's geared towards women. And it's basically a book, an erotic story, but also a guide and resource for them to recreate their own masturbation practices and the importance of it. And when I talk to my male friends about it, not to make this too patriarchal, but when I've talked to my male friends about it, they're like, well, like, then she's not going to want to have sex with me. Like there's this like fear. There's this fear mongering that's been happening in our society for a really, really long time, not just around sex and women's sexuality, but just masturbation in general. Right. And it's I don't know if I can cuss on the show, but it's just bull. It's just bull. It doesn't make any sense. When you connect with your sexual power, with your creative power, you not only feel more confident about yourself, you not only get more clarity about what your body likes, right? Because a lot of time, how many times has a woman gone into a sexual experience and not had any pleasure whatsoever? You know what I mean? So you learn about your body.
Sadly, many women.
Yeah.
Many
yeah,
women.
Many women. And so masturbation helps with that too, helps with getting clarity so that you understand what you actually like and what you want. And when you have clarity, you get more confidence, right? You've probably heard that term, with clarity comes confidence.
Oh, sure.
Right?
Oh, of
right?
course.
It's totally true. So you can have more confidence to then communicate with your partner. And not only that, but you're connecting to your own creativity, to your own passion. And so maybe that looks like finally asking for the raise that you think you deserve. Or maybe that means finally pursuing that dream that you always had, because you're connected with that passion. You're connected with your creativity. And I think in our society, in our culture, that is something that has died.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
I mean, exactly. And how many women know that they have a right to claim that creativity, that self-pleasure.
a right to pleasure. Yeah. Just a right to even have and experience it. Yeah. And it sounds
that's definitely a right to pleasure with a partner is even probably more taboo than a right to have self-pleasure. I mean, not that they think about that either, but I mean, it's almost like they feel that they really don't have a right to
I mean, that's how I felt.
have a wonderful relationship.
Yeah. That's how I felt. I felt in my last relationship. And again, my belief system at the time was that the only way for me to feel worthy was to do for other people. That was the belief at the time. And operating under that belief, I absolutely would never do anything for myself. Definitely, not ask for something in the bedroom. I've never asked for oral pleasure or for him to, maybe not go as hard because it didn't feel very good. I never did any of that stuff because I didn't really feel very worthy. And I wanted the way that, in kind of that world, that warped kind of belief, the way for me to like receive love and to feel like I deserve love was to just go along, right? Don't make waves, be a good girl, and those types of things. And so, yeah, I mean, that's how I felt. So,
I remember I spoke with a woman once many years ago, and not coming from that background personally, I even as a therapist, I was shocked when she said, I never thought I had the right to say no. And I just froze there when I heard that. And I thought, this is horrendous. I mean, this is a horrendous story, but yet how many women think that?
right.
It was quite shocking, even as a therapist, to hear that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting when you hear the lack of choice that people are really experiencing. I mean, and that's why my program, that's what we focus on. Like the first month is all about just tuning into your choice and doing what you choose. There's nobody else around. You don't have to worry about other people. It's just you. It's just you and your choices, and practicing that. It's a practice, really. Yeah.
So now, when will your book be out? So you're writing a book, or you're in the process of
Yeah.
completing it?
I'm
When
done
will
writing it.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah, now I'm just working through getting it published and stuff.
Hmm.
So hopefully it'll be done before the Christmas holiday. For those of you who celebrate Christmas, it'll be done before the 25th. I'm thinking probably around the 15th or 16th, it'll be ready for
That'll
publishing.
be out. Oh, wonderful.
Yeah. It's my first book, and I've always wanted to become an author. It's like a lifelong dream of mine. This is probably the one of the proudest things I've done in my life. Actually,
Oh, well, congratulations.
now that I'm talking about it, thank you so much.
Oh, yes, if you could please give us the information, I'd love to put it out there for the audience to have the
Absolutely.
capability of getting it, whether it's either an ebook or purchasing a physical book.
Yeah, they
But
can have the option of either.
yes.
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. And then how can they get in touch with you? Say women are looking to find out about your program. I mean, I'm going to list the information definitely in the description box, but how do you have a website? Is it better
I
to go through your
do.
Facebook group?
Yeah, so I would say to get a good idea of like who I am, what I stand for, and get a feel for like my vibe, you know what I mean?
Right.
Is to join my Facebook group, because that's where I go live like every week, and I
Mhm.
have these posts where I'm talking about like different things that I'm learning and different things that my clients are going through and stuff. And so it's probably more you get more information just by
Mhm.
joining the group. You don't have to do anything really. So I would say my Facebook group, Pleasure Positivity for Women,
Mhm.
is the best way to get a feel for who I am, what
Mhm.
I stand for. And if you don't have Facebook, or if you're like, F social media, I don't want to do that,
Mhm.
then you can go to my website, which is pleasureroots.com. And from there, you can see information about me,
Mhm.
information about my programs, information about workshops that I've done. Um, anything really
Oh,
is on
wonderful.
there. Yeah.
Oh, I
So
definitely will list everything so that anybody
thank
who's
you.
looking to find you, to get in touch with you. And I think that it's great to join the Facebook group. I think it's wonderful.
Yeah, it's free, like
Oh, well, absolutely, because you have support there. You have other people that are looking to find out the same things. So
exactly.
it's always
That's what
it's
I'm trying to
wonderful, right?
cultivate
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
To
yeah.
be in contact with like-minded women.
Yes, yeah. It's actually one of probably my most favorite and sacred online spaces right now is my Facebook group. I really try to nurture it quite a bit. So, yeah.
No, that's wonderful. Well, Aubrey, I want to thank you so much for taking the time. I know you have your show, you have clients, for taking the time to come out and speak to the audience.
Yeah, thank you
Ho
so much for having me.
Oh, you're quite welcome. Hopefully, maybe in the new year after the book is out and about, you can come back and talk. I know there's always a different topic to talk about, especially with this, right? This is only the scratching the surface here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I could talk about it for hours. So, yeah, so I would love to come back and talk about something new with you. Absolutely.
Wonderful. Thank you again. And listen, have a wonderful holiday.
Thank you. You did the
And
same. And all
thank
your
you. And
listeners as well.
thank you. And thank you very much for all of them, and a wonderful new year. And hopefully we can plan something in the new year again.
Yeah, I would love that. I would absolutely be honored to do that with you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye now.
All right. Bye, Marissa.